On everyone. Several weeks ago, we heard that Donovan Mitchell may be on the trade block, and many teams at the time were trying to pursue him, with the New York Knicks being the leaders. And then that talk fizzled out, right? We heard nothing. There was no traction. We got reports that Donovan Mitchell is okay staying in Utah. He's not really forcing Utah's hand, but he would welcome a trade to the right situation. And it looks like Utah's ready to hit the reset button. But they're not going to force it. They're not going to rush the issue, especially with Donovan Mitchell not putting any pressure. He does still have 3 years left on his deal, so there is no rush to trade Donovan. But if the right trade, the right package is there for Utah, then Utah would do the deal. I mean, they clearly moved off of Rudy Gobert and got a ridiculous package, but I'm sure they don't expect to get those kind of packages every time. I think they realize that was an absolute steal, but they want something that they believe is worth moving off of Donovan Mitchell for. But again, last several weeks, absolutely nothing. Well, we got a report from The Athletic, Shams and Tony. They reported that the New York Knicks have re-engaged in conversations with the Utah Jazz to try to acquire Donovan Mitchell. Now, the Knicks were the front runners at one point and likely still the front runners again. According to the report, the New York Knicks have been the most aggressive when it comes to pursuing Donovan Mitchell. They have been active trying to trade that. And they got a whole treasure trove of picks, first round, second rounds. They got some young players. They need to move off a salary if they get Donovan Mitchell. So then that opens up several other trade possibilities. So this is very possibly the first domino to fall. For a long time, we thought that it would be the KD. But what if Donovan is? I mean, the Knicks, for whatever reason, really want Donovan Mitchell. And I don't have anything against Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell is an incredible player. I think he's a great talent. But you have Jalen Brunson, who is essentially the same guy. They're the same height, although Donovan has a longer wingspan at 6'10". But still, I mean, they are very similar players. And your backcourt is going to be atrocious defensively with Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell. Even though Donovan Mitchell came into the league as a defensive guy, I don't know what happened. He just wasn't able to adjust to the NBA. Personally, I think it was, he was just asked to do so much on the Utah Jazz, score, facilitate, rebound, do everything, be the primary guy, that it's exhausting to do that and play defense. There's only very few players all time in this league that have been great defensively and offensively and been able to put up, 20, 30 points a game. And I just think Donovan Mitchell is undersized, so he's got to work a little harder than somebody that's like 6'8", that can just get to the basket easily. But nonetheless, the New York Knicks seem destined to land Donovan Mitchell. They're the ones that are heavily pursuing him. Brunson, you'd have, R.J. Barrett. You would have maybe some of the young guys. Depends on which ones you give up. You have Julius Randle. You have Mitchell, the center. So, I mean, you have a solid core to kind of build around and then maybe add some other pieces. I imagine if they do this deal, then the Knicks are going to be trying to trade Fournier, maybe Rose, maybe even Randle. Although, if Randle can get back to, Randle of 2 seasons ago, that is a guy that you want to keep around. That's a guy that justifies the contract you gave him. If he's the Randle from last year, I mean, he was one of the worst productive players in the league last year. That's not the guy you want. That's not the guy you paid all that money to keep around. But to be honest, I don't think he's the Randle of 2 years ago, but I also don't think he's the Randle of last year. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I think he's a solid 4th or 5th option on a championship team. But Donovan Mitchell, as great as he is, I don't think Donovan Mitchell is the number one guy on the team. He has been the number one guy and hasn't been able to do anything. I mean, he's had teams that were really good, that were number one in the Western Conference, looked like this was their year, and wasn't able to carry the load. And maybe that's just, him and Rudy Gobert. They didn't really seem to like each other ever since the incident a couple years ago with the vid. That kind of changed the dynamic. That kind of changed everything. So I don't know if maybe it was that. I don't know if he just, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is with Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz. But it looks like if the deal is right, they will move off of Donovan Mitchell. And again, the dominoes were waiting to fall. Kevin Durant has the entire league on frozen mode right now because everyone's trying to figure out what are they going to do with Kevin Durant, right? Kevin Durant, he wants to be traded. He's really trying to force the hand. Utah's kind of waiting around, and you might be wondering, why does Utah care if Kevin Durant gets traded? Because that could incentivize other teams to start pursuing Donovan Mitchell, which drives up the asking price. Supply and demand. Right now, there's teams that would rather have Kevin Durant. So they're kind of waiting to see what domino happens, like what domino falls. Like, what if Boston misses out on Kevin Durant and they're like, well, we really need to trade Jaylen Brown because he's disgruntled now, he's upset, and we might lose him. Because the whole reason the Celtics are even considering trading Jaylen Brown is because he's not going to sign an extension because he loses money if he signs an extension. It's just the way the extension works. So he gets more money in free agency, and he wants to be a number one guy. So what if he's like, hey, I don't want to be here. You guys wanted to trade me. You guys weren't able to trade me. I'm out of here in 2 years. I need you to trade me. Well, maybe the Celtics look at it and go, well, hey, what if we can get Donovan Mitchell to pair with Jason Tatum? Like, that could work, and it wouldn't cost us that much. Maybe like a Jaylen Brown, maybe a Donovan Mitchell swap, or maybe we can even get a first-round pick, because Jaylen Brown's better than Donovan Mitchell, whatever. I'm not saying that will happen, but I'm saying that's just an example. You don't know what's on the horizon. You don't know what teams end up becoming desperate. Let's say Kevin Durant does go to the Celtics. Well, does Miami get desperate and like, we need a scorer? So maybe they try to work out a deal to try to get Donovan Mitchell. Maybe another team comes out of the woodworks and they're like, hey, we want Donovan. It just opens the door for more possibilities, which again drives up the asking price. So now the Knicks, they're not the sole team that has the assets to try to go get a guy like Donovan Mitchell. And Utah's in no rush. They have him for 3 years, and he's not pulling a Kevin Durant. He's not at the Utah Jazz saying, you guys need to hurry up and trade me. I'm not showing up to training camp. I'm not doing this, that, and the other. No, he's not doing any of that. He's just kind of handing out, if you guys trade me, great. If you don't, all right, we'll figure it out. Which is good. That's what you want from your star. You want that understanding. And Utah, if they can trade him, they will, because, again, that understanding, that relationship. Utah's looking at it as like, hey, we know where we're at right now. We know we're rebuilding. You're good enough. You're young enough. We can get you a deal. We'll get you out of here. Where do you want to go? You want to go to the Knicks? You want to go to these teams? Okay, we'll try to work out a deal. That's what this kind of seems like to me. Seems like both sides are kind of at this understanding. And it's like, we're not going to just trade you for peanuts, but if we can get worked out a good deal, then we'll unload you. And I think Donovan understands that. He's okay, cool. I'll be over here, living my life. And where Kevin Durant on the other side, he's like, no, you need to get me out of Brooklyn. You need to trade me immediately. I won't show up to training camp. If you want me to stay, well, you got to fire these guys. He's just putting a ton of pressure on the Nets. So it's just two completely different situations. But I do think that this is domino A and domino B that need to fall for other things. Because Donovan Mitchell gets traded, then that opens the door for, Jazz to make other trades, to try to get more assets. They got a bunch of other guys that really have some value on some of these contending teams. Obviously, the Lakers have been linked to the Jazz and the Knicks as potential trade partners. Maybe they work out a deal there, or maybe it's a 3-team deal because the Lakers have been linked to Kyrie. So maybe they try to get Kyrie and they, take some pieces from the Jazz and some pieces from the Knicks, and then here you go. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we see all kinds of trades begin to fall, and all kinds of little trades. I'm not talking about big, Donovan Mitchell will be the big blockbuster trade, but I do think we, after that, see a bunch of smaller trades, teams unloading players and stuff, especially the Knicks, especially the Jazz, because the Knicks are going to have to clear off some salary space once they acquire Donovan Mitchell, if they acquire Donovan Mitchell. But overall, Donovan Mitchell, look, he's a tremendous player. He's a tremendous talent. He's a guy that's proven to be able to handle the scoring load. He's a guy that was putting up 50-point playoff games and stuff like that. And there's a lot of value in that. But he's undersized. He's a guy that doesn't offer you very much outside of scoring, although he has been able to show he can score at an elite level. But as that starts to decline, or a new environment, how is he going to work with, Jalen Brunson and, R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle? Is he going to be able to fit in with those guys? Because now what if he's not, he might be the number one scoring option, but is he going to be able to adapt the way he was with Utah, where he goes from being the sole number one guy to I am one of 5 guys now, and we're all trying to work out this team scheme. How is he going to get along with Thibodeau, right? Thibodeau is a guy that is notoriously ran players ragged into the ground, right? He loves to play his players 40-plus minutes a game. Is Donovan Mitchell going to be okay with, that heavy workload constantly playing off? Is him and Jalen Brunson, are they going to be able to work? Are they going to be able to be a real duo? And what is the defense going to look like? Again, I don't think that they're going to be very good defensively. And I think that they're going to be too one-dimensional. It's going to be a lot of like, here, Brunson, here's the ball, go score. Here, Mitchell, here's the ball, go score. And that works for teams like, like the Boston Celtics, because Boston does that a lot with Tatum and Brown. Here, Tatum, ISO. Here, Brown, ISO. But they have so many, but the two of them are also great defenders, and they have so many other guys that are okay and can adapt and adjust and do the little things and do the dirty work as well as play the defense to allow these two guys to ISO. The Knicks don't have that, at least currently. Maybe they could go get that, but, Randall, is he going to be okay with just like Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson ISOs all game? How is he going to feel about that? How is RJ going to feel? Are you just going to ISO between RJ? Like, I don't know what the play schemes are going to look like. And Tibbs is not a Steve Kerr type coach where they're going to be running a bunch of 10 passes before a shot, or things like that. He's not going to be running a lot of those screens and high screens. And he's always been a very specific guy. And many people have wondered, has Tibbs just aged himself out because his lack to adjust? And that's a big concern. Is he going to be able to make these guys work? Is he going to be able to make them be that fit that New York's hoping for? I don't know. I'm not really big on the Knicks going and getting Donovan Mitchell. I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not a Knicks fan, but it just doesn't make any sense for me, because I'm just I would rather you just wait, be patient, save your assets for maybe another star, because every 6 months there's a new star that's available. I'd rather you just wait for that and see what develops, see what happens. Just because Donovan Mitchell is basically another Jalen Brunson, or Jalen Brunson is another Donovan Mitchell. I just think, Donovan Mitchell, in my opinion, is better, at least right now, because we don't know Jalen Brunson. Now, they could be looking at Donovan as the insurance policy, right? Jalen Brunson came out in left field. Nobody knows if he's still that guy. He had a great 10-game stretch, and that was basically it. Nobody thought he was a guy that could go get you 25 to 30 a night, and he could just take over games the way he did. But we've seen players do that for even longer stretches, including entire seasons, and then we're never able to replicate that. And I'm sure that's got to be a big concern with the Knicks. I'm sure that that's something they got to be looking at and go, there is still a lot of unknowns with Jalen Brunson. We don't know if he could really be that guy. Let's go get Donovan just in case he isn't, and then kind of figure it out. Go get the talent and then figure it out from there. That's kind of how I think that they're thinking about this. But who knows? Who knows what they're thinking about it? And, those are my thoughts and opinions. And as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know yours down in the comment section below. What do you think of Donovan Mitchell potentially going to the Knicks? What do you think of the Knicks starting to re-engage and be more aggressive in Donovan Mitchell trades? Do you think this trade happens soon? Do you think it happens later? Do you think that this is the first domino to fall? And once this happens, then, KD gets traded and you see all these other small trades, things like that. Or do you think the Knicks will eventually just say that this is too much to give up, things like that? Also, what do you think of the Knicks even trying to acquire Donovan Mitchell? Do you think it makes sense to you? Do you think it doesn't? Do you think that it is maybe an insurance policy on Jalen Brunson, because who knows how good he's really going to be? All these thoughts and opinions, I'd love to hear down in the comment section below. However you feel about it, let me know. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.